The sky hung low with soft gray clouds, the kind that looked heavy with snow, but refused to release it. The wind was gentle, brushing the world in a cold whisper. It was the kind of Christmas Eve that should have felt warm in the heart, the kind that once filled my old house with music, laughter, and the smell of cinnamon bread rising in the oven. But now, as I pulled up in front of my son's new home, a grand, modern house decorated with golden lights, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I sat in the car for a moment, gloved hands resting on the steering wheel, watching the lights blinking on the roof line. They twinkled cheerfully, completely unaware of the heaviness that lived in my chest. My breath fogged the windshield. The heater hummed weakly. I wasn't late, not that I ever was, but something in me hesitated, a quiet instinct, maybe. The kind of instinct a mother develops after years of reading her child's expressions, his moods, his discomfort, his secrets. But I shook the feeling away. It was Christmas. Christmas had always been sacred to us. Beside me on the passenger seat was a neatly wrapped box, my handmade quilt for Daniel and his wife, Melissa. I had stitched it over the past 3 months, each square holding memories of Daniel's childhood. His first drawing of a house, the scrap of fabric from his favorite dinosaur pajamas, a small embroidered star that matched the one he put on the tree every year with his father. On top of the box sat that very star ornament, the last one my husband carved before he passed, the one we'd hung every Christmas since Daniel was 3. I had polished it gently this morning, whispering, "It's another Christmas without you, Paul. But your boy has grown so much. He has a family now. You'd be proud." After taking a deep breath, I picked up the gifts, stepped out of the car, and walked toward the house. Inside, I could hear voices, laughter, clinking glasses, a Christmas song playing somewhere in the background. Shadows passed by the window. I walked up the steps, the wooden boards creaking softly under my boots. Through the frosted glass of the door, I could make out a figure approaching. I smiled automatically. But the smile froze when I saw a familiar silhouette behind him. Melissa, she wasn't smiling at all. Her eyes were narrow, her expression cold. And then, as if she realized I was watching, she quickly lifted her chin and plastered on a sweet, sugary smile. My heart stuttered. Daniel opened the door. "Mom," he said, one word, flat, emotionless, not the excited greeting he used to give me, not the warm hug or the Merry Christmas or the "I'm so glad you're here," just "Mom." I managed a small smile. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." I stepped closer, expecting him to move aside. He didn't. He kept his hand on the edge of the door, blocking the entrance with his body. He wasn't angry. That would have been easier to confront. Instead, his face was blank, washed clean of feeling, like he was reading from a script someone else wrote for him. Behind him, Melissa crossed her arms and leaned casually against the wall, her lips curving into a smirk that she didn't even try to hide this time. Her eyes glittered with a strange satisfaction, as though she had been waiting for this moment. Daniel took a breath. And then he said the words that cracked something deep inside me. "You are not our family anymore. Go away." The world seemed to tilt. My ears rang. For a moment, I hoped I'd misheard him, that maybe the music inside had distorted the words, or the cold air had played tricks on my brain. What did you say?" My voice trembled despite my effort to sound calm. Daniel's jaw tightened. He swallowed once, looked down briefly, then repeated, "You are not our family anymore." Behind him, Melissa let out a single soft laugh, a delighted little exhale, like a child watching a puppet perform exactly the way she wanted. My eyes dropped to the wooden star ornament in my hand, the one that represented decades of Christmas mornings, the one Daniel had reached for every year as a boy, insisting on hanging it right in the center, so Daddy can see it from heaven. I looked at my son, really looked at him. His eyes weren't cruel. They were lost, afraid, controlled. But the pain didn't lessen, I see. I whispered. That was all I managed. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. Not here. not in front of her. I simply nodded, shifted the weight of the gift box in my arms, and turned back toward my car. I walked slowly down the steps, feeling the cold bite at my face. The laughter from inside continued, almost mocking me, even as my vision blurred from tears I refused to let fall. When I reached the car, I set the gift box on the seat and rested my hands on the roof, letting myself breathe. In and out, my heart felt bruised, not broken yet, just painfully, deeply bruised. I slid into the driver's seat and stared straight ahead, hands trembling on my lap. My phone buzzed once in my coat pocket, a reminder for the time I should have been sitting at their dinner table. Instead, I reached for my phone and opened the contact list. A name stared back at me, Mr. Caldwell, my husband's oldest friend. A man Daniel admired and desperately wanted to impress. My thumb hovered for just a second. Then I pressed call. He answered on the first ring. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't rant. I just told him in a quiet, steady voice exactly what happened at that door. 5 minutes later, as I started the car and pulled away from the curb, I looked in the rear view mirror. Through the window of the house, I saw people standing, gathering their things, confusion spreading like wildfire. And then I saw something else, guests pushing their chairs back from the table, a woman shaking her head, a man patting Daniel's shoulder and walking toward the exit, another couple hurrying to grab their coats. One by one, cars began to pull out of the driveway. Melissa burst out onto the porch, her face twisted in shock. Daniel stood behind her, bewildered. Meanwhile, I kept driving forward, the road stretching quiet and empty ahead of me. And for the first time since he closed that door, I breathed without shaking. The road ahead was dark, illuminated only by the soft glow of streetlights that flickered like they were shivering in the cold. My hands still trembled on the wheel, though the heater had warmed the car enough for my breath to stop fogging the glass. I replayed Daniel's words over and over in my mind, each repetition sharper than the last. You are not our family anymore. If words were knives, those were driven right through the years of birthdays, scraped knees, late night talks, and Christmas mornings spent in pajamas. But I didn't let myself fall apart, not yet. Mr. Caldwell had picked up immediately, almost as if he sensed something was wrong. He had always had that kind of intuition. Ever since my husband, Paul, died, he'd checked on us more than anyone else. He helped Daniel get his first internship. He advised him when he bought his first home. He was the closest thing to a grandfather figure Daniel had ever known, and the one man Daniel always tried to impress. His deep, steady voice came through the speaker. "Mary, is everything all right?" I swallowed hard, keeping my voice calm, almost detached. I'm sorry to disturb you on Christmas Eve. I know you're at Daniel's dinner." There was a pause. "A concerned one?" "Yes. I just arrived a little while ago." "Where are you? Aren't you coming?" The softness in his tone nearly broke me. "No," I whispered. "I was told to leave." Silence. A heavy, disbelieving silence. Then his voice hardened. "What do you mean?" I told him, not dramatically, not angrily. Just the truth. How Daniel blocked the door. How Melissa stood behind him smirking. How he told me I was no longer family. I didn't embellish a single detail. I didn't need to. When I finished, the line was so quiet that for a moment I wondered if the call had dropped. Then Mr. Caldwell spoke, and his voice was like steel. "I will not stand for that. Not from him, not from anyone. A beat. And I certainly will not invest in a man who treats his mother with such disgrace." My heart squeezed. "Please don't. This wasn't why I called. I know," he said. "You would never ask for anything. That's why I'm doing it." Before I could respond, he added, "Leave it to me." Then the line clicked. Inside the house, chaos began to unfold, although I couldn't see it all from my rear-view mirror, Mr. Caldwell later told me every detail, and some of what happened was already visible from the street. He stood up from the dining table just moments after my call, his chair screeching loudly on the hardwood floor. He didn't raise his voice, he simply cleared his throat, and the room quieted. He announced in a calm, authoritative tone, "I'm withdrawing from the investment." Forks froze midair. Glasses halted halfway to lips. Melissa's hand, which had been gesturing animatedly during her story, dropped to her side. Daniel blinked. What? Why, what happened? Mr. Caldwell looked him straight in the eyes that so often held pride when looking at him. "Your mother happened," he said. A murmur swept through the table. He continued, "I will not partner with a man who leaves his own mother standing in the cold on Christmas Eve." People shifted uncomfortably. Melissa's smile dissolved instantly, replaced by a twitch of panic. "That's ridiculous," she said, her voice brittle around the edges. "This is our home, and we decide who comes in." She. But Mr. Caldwell cut her off with a single raised hand. "You should be ashamed," he said to Melissa, "both of you." He pulled out his phone right there at the table and sent a message to several people, other business associates, long-time friends, and influential community members. Many of them had come to Night Asterisk only because Asterisk he was attending. Some were investors Daniel had been hoping to impress. Phones buzzed around the room. One by one, guests looked down at their screens. Some whispered, some frowned deeply. Others just stood slowly, reluctantly, as if they were trying not to be part of the scene, but couldn't ignore what they had just learned. A woman near the end of the table murmured, I didn't know. I can't stay after hearing that." Her husband nodded firmly. "It reflects on everyone here if we do." The guests started gathering their coats and handbags. Daniel rushed forward, panic rising. "Wait, why is everyone leaving? What did you all hear? What's going on?" No one wanted to answer him directly. A man with silver hair, someone Daniel had been courting for months for a partnership, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Son, if you treat your mother like that, you'll treat your partners the same way when it suits you." Melissa stepped between them, her voice sharp and desperate. "This is absurd. It was a private family matter. That's the problem," the man replied. "Family matters reveal character." Melissa's jaw dropped. Her face flushed red with anger that she couldn't control the narrative. Within minutes, chairs were pushed back. People slipped on coats and scarves. Wine glasses remained half full on the table, dessert plates untouched. The music continued to play, but now it sounded strangely hollow. The front door opened repeatedly, cold air gusting through the elegant hallway as guests hurried out. From the street, I saw headlights turning on, cars backing up, a string of vehicles departing one after another like a quiet parade of disapproval. Inside the house, Daniel stood frozen, watching it all crumble. His perfect dinner, his perfect network, his perfect image, and Melissa, she paced furiously, shouting in fragments, "They can't do this. This is insane. She ruined everything." I didn't stay long enough to watch the rest. I didn't need to. As I turned onto the main road, the last thing I glimpsed was Daniel stepping out onto the porch, arms hanging by his sides, staring into the cold night like a man who suddenly realized just how much he had lost in a single moment, not because of me, but because of the choice he made at that door. And as the lights of his house faded in the distance behind me, I finally allowed a single tear to slip down my cheek. Not out of weakness, not out of defeat, but because I knew the truth. Sometimes the most powerful changes in life happen quietly, with just one phone call. The next morning, sunlight crept over my bedroom window in pale streaks, like a hesitant visitor unsure whether it was welcome. I lay awake long before dawn, staring at the faint cracks in the ceiling, feeling the heavy quiet of the house around me. Christmas morning used to be filled with noise, the snap of wrapping paper, the clang of pots in the kitchen, Daniel's laughter as he tried to guess which gifts were his before opening them. But this morning the silence had weight. It was the kind of silence that settles not only in the air, but in the bones. I finally rose from bed when the shadows had thinned, leaving behind the cold, worn imprint of a night spent turning over memories I could not put away. I made myself coffee, hands moving in automatic, practiced motions. But when I tried to take the first sip, the smell alone carried too much nostalgia. Daniel and I used to drink this same brew together when he came to visit. I set the cup aside, untouched. Just as I sat down at the kitchen table, my phone buzzed. Asterisk, asterisk, Daniel. Asterisk, asterisk, I didn't pick up. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because I didn't trust my voice not to break. Not yet. He called again and again, then left a voicemail, then another. Finally he stopped, only for my phone to buzz again, this time with a message from Mr. Caldwell. Asterisk Daniel arrived at my house an hour ago. He's devastated. I didn't let him in, but I thought you should know. Asterisk, a strange ache pressed behind my ribs. Daniel devastated. Why devastated? Wasn't he the one who told me to leave? But deep down, beneath the hurt, I already knew the answer. Daniel had always been sensitive, emotional under the surface. He just hid it well, especially after meeting Melissa. I sighed, resting my forehead against my palm. The memory of her smirk the night before burned in my mind. It wasn't the expression of a woman caught in a messy situation. It was the grin of someone who had been waiting for that moment, working toward it. A knock sounded at my front door, hard, rapid. For a moment I froze, but then through the glass I saw a shape, tall, broad-shouldered. Not Daniel. It was too rigid, too tense. I opened the door cautiously. It was asterisk asterisk Melissa's mother asterisk asterisk, a woman I'd met twice and instantly understood. Polite veneer, calculating eyes, a permanent air of superiority. She didn't wait to be invited in. You've caused quite a disaster. She snapped as she stepped into my living room, brushing snow from her coat. I blinked. Excuse me, you could have handled this privately, she hissed. Do you realize how many important people left that dinner? What it did to Daniel's business? What it made asterisk, my daughter asterisk, look like? I stared at her, stunned by the sheer audacity. What, asterisk, your daughter asterisk looks like? I repeated quietly. She stood behind my son while he told me I wasn't family anymore. She waved her hand as though swatting away a fly. Oh, please, it was just a heat of the moment argument. You shouldn't have run off crying to that investor friend of yours. My jaw clenched. I didn't cry to him. I told him the truth when he asked why I wasn't at the dinner. Well, she said sharply, you should have kept your truth to yourself. Before I could reply, she inhaled deeply, as though preparing for a delicate operation. You must fix this, she said. Call your friend, tell him you exaggerated. Tell everyone you misunderstood. Undo the damage. That's what a good mother would do. I stared at her. A long, cold stare. Then, very softly, I said, a good mother doesn't cover up cruelty just to maintain appearances. The woman stiffened. Her lips pressed into a thin line before she spun on her heel and left without another word. When the door clicked shut, the house fell silent again. And then, suddenly, I felt it. Not sadness, not anger, clarity. A quiet, steady knowing. This wasn't an isolated moment. This was a pattern. A long, carefully woven net Melissa had been casting around Daniel for years. Later that afternoon, Mr. Caldwell called me again. His voice was solemn. There's more, he said. He told me that after he refused to speak with Daniel that morning, news spread quickly among the business community. Word of last night's fiasco reached potential investors, partners, and even clients. Some rescinded offers quietly. Others pulled out openly. A few sent carefully worded emails citing ethical concerns. By noon, Daniel's secretary, who had always been fond of him, submitted her resignation, stating she couldn't represent a firm whose leadership displayed questionable personal values. The collapse was rapid, shockingly rapid, but it wasn't just professional. The personal unraveling was worse. Melissa went on a rage spiral. According to Caldwell, she, Asterisk blamed Daniel for not controlling the narrative. Asterisk accused him of making her look foolish. Asterisk yelled loud enough that the neighbors heard. Asterisk threatened to leave him if he didn't fix everything immediately. And then the worst blow, she declared she never wanted his mother in their lives again, calling me a small person with a victim complex. Hearing that stung, but it didn't surprise me. Before we hung up, Caldwell added softly, "She's been steering him for a long time, Mary." I knew, I'd known for years. Ever since she entered his life, small things had shifted. He called less, visited less, stopped asking for my advice, stopped sharing things about his life, stopped laughing the same way. It was like watching someone slowly fade behind a curtain you couldn't reach. As the afternoon shadows lengthened, I returned to my living room and sat by the tree. Only two small gifts lay beneath it, ones I'd bought for myself, so the space wouldn't feel so empty. My eyes fell on the star ornament lying on the coffee table, the wood smooth from years of handling. I ran my thumb over the carved edges. Paul, I whispered to the memory of my husband, I wish you were here. You would know what to do. But the house remained still. I closed my eyes and let myself finally cry, not loudly, not dramatically, just soft, tired tears. Tears for the boy I raised. For the years we shared. For the way he had looked at me last night, not with hatred, but with asterisk someone else's fear. Asterisk, when I wiped my face, my phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel, just 2 words, asterisk, asterisk, I'm coming. Asterisk, asterisk, my breath caught. My heart beat once hard. I stood, unable to stop myself from walking toward the window, though the street was still empty. I didn't know what version of my son I would see when he arrived. The boy who used to sleep on my shoulder at Christmas Mass. The teenager who asked me for dating advice, blushing through every question. Or the man who'd shut the door in my face just 24 hours earlier. Whoever it would be, I needed to be strong enough to face him. The unraveling had only just begun. And I sensed that what came next would determine whether we could ever put the pieces back together again. Snow had finally begun to fall by the time Daniel arrived. It drifted down in slow spirals, soft and gentle, so painfully opposite of the turmoil swirling inside me. The flakes gathered on my window pane like tiny white fingerprints, blurring the world outside. Then came the sound of a car engine shutting off. Crunch of hurried footsteps on the icy walkway, a hesitant knock, not pounding, not demanding, just a trembling, hopeful tap on the door. My heart squeezed. For a long moment I didn't move. I stood in the quiet of my living room, fingers grazing the wooden star ornament on the coffee table, my husband's last gift to our family. The glow from the small Christmas tree flickered across the walls, casting gentle shadows that felt like memories watching from every corner. Finally, I walked to the door and opened it. There stood Daniel. His face was a mess, eyes swollen and red, cheeks blotched, hair sticking to his forehead where melted snow dripped down. He looked younger than he had in years, not the polished man in tailored suits, not the confident businessman Melissa molded him into. He looked like my boy again. He clutched something in his hand, the ornament, the star I had dropped the night before when he shut me out. He held it with both hands, as though afraid it might crumble if he loosened his grip. For a long, stretched heartbeat, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel's voice cracked open. "Mom," just one word broken, desperate, aching. He took a shuddering breath. "Mom, I'm so sorry." His lip trembled, and he closed his eyes, pressing the back of his hand to his mouth as a sob escaped. When he looked at me again, tears streamed freely down his face. He swallowed hard. "I don't know what I was doing. I don't know how I said that to you. I don't know how I let it happen. His voice splintered. I messed up so badly. I opened the door wider without a word. He stepped inside, wiping his face with his sleeve, the ornament still clutched protectively in his fist. Snow clung to his coat in tiny wet stars. We stood in the living room, neither of us sitting, like sitting would make this too normal, too simple, for the depth of what lay between us. Finally, Daniel whispered, "She's leaving me. Melissa." Her name felt like a cold gust through the room. "She blamed me for everything," he said quietly. "For the investors pulling out, for the guests leaving, for the humiliation. She said I ruined her life, and then she packed her things and went to her mother's house." He shook his head, a humorless, bitter laugh escaping. "I thought she loved me. I thought I thought I mattered to her. You do," I whispered. He looked up, confusion flickering across his face. "You always mattered," I said softly. "You just forgot who loved you for the right reasons. That was all it took." Daniel broke. He collapsed into my arms like he'd been carrying a mountain for years, and finally set it down. His shoulders shook with deep, raw sobs that came from a place far beneath the surface. "I'm sorry, Mom," he cried into my shoulder. "I'm so sorry. I should never have said that. I shouldn't have let her put those ideas in my head. I'm so ashamed. I don't know how you can ever look at me again." I held him like I had when he was a child, rubbing small circles into his back, letting him cling to me until the storm inside him quieted. When he pulled back, his eyes fell to the ornament again. "This," he whispered. "I found it on the porch after you left. I knew how much it meant to you. I couldn't leave it there. I couldn't let it get ruined. I think something inside me cracked when I saw it in snow." He wiped his cheek. "It reminded me of Dad, and it reminded me of you, and of everything I'd forgotten." I reached out and touched his cheek gently. "People lose themselves sometimes," I said. "What matters is finding your way back." He nodded, voice small. Can you forgive me?" I took a breath. "Forgiveness is not a door you swing open easily after it's been slammed in your face. It's a process, slow, deliberate, fragile." But looking at him, I saw not the man who told me to go away, but the man who was standing in front of me now, raw, honest, broken, and trying. "I can," I said softly, "but trust will take time." He nodded again, eyes filling with gratitude and relief. "I'll earn it, I promise, whatever it takes." I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Then let's start small." I moved toward the small Christmas tree, the little one I had put up this year, because there had been no reason to go big. Daniel followed me slowly. "Will you help me place the star?" I asked. His breath hitched. He nodded and stepped forward. His hands shook as he lifted the wooden star, turning it over once, like he was seeing it clearly for the first time in years. Carefully, reverently, he placed it on the highest branch he could reach. The tree lights reflected off the polished wood, making it glow warmly, like my husband's spirit was watching quietly from somewhere unseen. Daniel whispered, "I'm home, Mom." He looked at me, eyes soft and full of something I thought Melissa had taken from him forever. Love. If you'll still have me." I stepped closer, cupping his face in my hands the way I had when he was small. "I never stopped having you," I said. "I was just waiting for you to remember." He closed his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek. And for the first time in a long time, longer than I had realized, I felt something settle inside me. Not revenge, not triumph, not even satisfaction, just peace, soft, warm, and quietly beautiful, like Christmas itself.